So for anyone who is studying astrology, you know that learning aspects is sometimes the hardest part, and integrating those aspects into your synthesis is even more difficult. So I wanted to give some helpful tips on how I interpret the energies of each aspect. So let's start with the conjunction, which is when you have two or more planets right next to each other side by side in the zodiac in a certain sign, sometimes in a certain house. You can have like a planet at 29 degrees of Leo and a planet at 2 degrees of Virgo, and those would also be conjunct. So in looking at a conjunction, you take the energies of those two or more planets and you blend them together because they are now acting together in every situation. You cannot do planet A without also doing planet B. It's kind of like if you were thinking about using a paintbrush and you dip your paint into the red and then you dip your paint into the blue, you no longer have just red and blue individually, you have purple. So whenever one planet is acting, it is also bringing in the energy of the second planet. So with a square, you have two planets at 90 degrees from each other, and that is an aspect of tension, and it is of the nature of Mars, because you have these two planets that are fighting. It's like two planets butting heads, trying to accomplish the same thing, but using different mechanisms because they will be in the same modality usually. However, the polarities will be different. You will have a earth sign squaring an air sign, or a fire sign squaring a water sign. So because these two planets are butting heads and they're trying to do the same things, you have to take action. They are literally creative aspects because the tension that creates forces you to take action, which is why they're of the nature of Mars. Now you can resolve that tension in a way that makes room for both. You can sometimes also see that one or both of the planets will overcompensate. So, if you've got Mars square Venus, if the Mars is in the overcoming position, it may be more of the overcompensator, being more outspoken, direct, assertive, aggressive, things like that. Now, in an opposition, it is a bit different because oppositions are literally two planets that are 180 degrees apart. So I like to think of it as there's planet A at your back door and there's planet B at your front door, and both are knocking. They both want your attention. And obviously you can't open both doors at once unless you're Stretch Armstrong, so you are going to have to find a way to balance your focus on the two planets. Usually it's going from one extreme to the next. And most of the time, the opposition does play out between you and another person. It's a relational aspect because if you think of how the natural order of the signs are, it's like the Libra-Aries axis. So there's literally you versus another person. So that is why one planet you may embody and that other planet that you're rejecting may show up in your life in the form of another person to give you the example and the lessons of that other planet. Now, trines, I know everybody says that trines are just these wonderful harmonious aspects, which yes, they are of the nature of Jupiter. However, Jupiter is not always positive, just like a trine is not always positive. A trine is when two planets are 120 degrees apart. They're usually in the same element, like water to water, earth to earth, etc. But instead of thinking of it as purely positive, think of it as one planet is infusing and automating the other planet with its energy. It is like a fire hose of unrestricted energy flow with nothing blocking it. So if one planet is up here and it's making a trine to the other planet, that first planet will automate the actions of the other one. It's like a domino effect almost. Now that can be a positive thing and that can bring ease in some situations, but if the two planets are not necessarily the most easy or they don't get along the best, that can create a lot of problems that just keep happening and keep happening because there's no stopping that energy. And finally, a sextile is when two planets are 60 degrees apart. They are usually in complementary polarities like earth and water and fire to air. And unlike the trine, with a sextile, you do have to put in some work to get these two planets to cooperate. There usually is a harmonious relationship between them, but it requires a little bit of elbow grease and cooperation to achieve the desired outcome. It's not just going to be automatic like it would with a trine. So those are the major Ptolemaic aspects. I hope that this helps you understand a little bit more about the nature of each aspect.